everyone's here to see my prediction for the Ohio State-Wisconsin game on Saturday. That's by the way, but thank you all for joining us. We are introducing this morning, in about a half an hour officially, the budget repair bill for the remainder of fiscal year 2011. Not only to balance the remainder of this fiscal year, as was outlined last week, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau outlined the state's challenges, paralleled in many ways what we had pointed out through the state's budget office, the Department of Administration. We are prepared to put forward a package that not only balances the budget for the remainder of fiscal year 11 through June 30th of this year, but also does so in a way that prepares us for the recommendations we're going to be making to the legislature for the next biennial budget, which will begin July 1. Overall, I'm going to walk you through some of the specifics, but first off, I want to stress, and I'm going to say this repeatedly because I want to make sure that those who are here in the media understand this and understand my feelings on this. I want to make it abundantly clear, as I've said time and time again, both throughout the campaign, in the transition, and in the just over a month I've had the honor of serving as the governor of the state of Wisconsin. We have good and decent people who work in state and local government. True public servants, professionals out there. There may be others who hear what we talk about today who will tie and somehow take that out of context. The bottom line is I have great respect for the men and women who work as public servants at the state and local level here in the state of Wisconsin. And I think when people look at the totality of what we're proposing, they'll understand that we have great respect, even in terms of the process that we're using here today. As I said throughout the campaign, as I said again after the election and the transition, as I said in December when the state employee contracts were up for consideration, when I said the first week of my term year as governor, and what I said again a week ago at the State of the State address, we have both an economic and fiscal crisis in the state. When it comes to the fiscal crisis, the reality is that we have to get this current budget, the soon-to-be forthcoming budget, and budgets for decades to come in line. We can no longer kick the can to the future. That's just unacceptable. We can't expect our children or our grandchildren to pay off the debts of the states, and we have to get things under control so that we can continue to have a stable government, a government that's stable not only for the services we provide, but ultimately sends a message to our employers in the state that this is a good place to invest in and grow in because of the stability of our government at both the state and the local level. To that extent, part of that means, and by no means this is the only way we're going to be balancing the next two-year budget, it is a portion, a small portion, but a significant portion, means that we have to reform the wage and benefit process here in the state of Wisconsin. Again, the numbers I'm talking about today should be no shock to anyone who's been paying attention along the way in the campaign, during the transition, and in the time I've served as governor. I think most people can echo the numbers themselves, but what we're looking for in the budget repair bill is beginning April 1st, we're going to put in place for state employees the same provisions we're going to be hoping to continue with if the next biennial budget that we propose is approved, and that is asking for a very modest contribution from state employees that will help us generate approximately $30 million of savings in this fiscal year and about tenfold that amount of savings in the next biennium. And that is a contribution to the pension system of half of what the overall contribution is, which is about 5.8%. Again, that's about the national average, as I pointed out before. We're asking for a health care premium contribution of just about 12.5% of the premium contribution. Again, that is about half of the national average. So I think when people look at this, particularly for people outside of government, they look at this and say, this is a pretty good deal. Obviously, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy for any of us, myself, the cabinet, the legislators, anyone in state government, be they represented or non-represented employees. But I think when you look at the long-term savings, this is a key component to balancing our budget. The alternative, in this budget alone in fiscal year 2011, to look at 1,500 layoffs of state employees, or up to 200,000, close to 200,000 children who would be bumped off of Medicaid-related programs. In the next biennium, if we were failed to make these changes, it would be the equivalent of anywhere from 5,500 to 60,000 state employees that would be have to be laid off, and a similar number, or equivalent number, of local government employees in both municipalities, counties, as well as teachers and others in school districts. I, for one, don't want to see anybody laid off in the state of Wisconsin. I think the last thing we need are any more people on unemployment. I think to that extent, these modest changes are reasonable, and so we're going to push forward with those. We think it's a viable alternative. I also want to stress to our employees at the state level, in particular to begin with, that what we're proposing here, again, is very modest. It's something that will apply to all non-represented employees. It's something where we're in this together on it. There are also other changes included in this bill for state employees that I think will be beneficial to them, as well as things that are not in this bill. In this bill will be a change in terms of state employees not being required to be a part of their union and not being required to have payroll deductions. They can opt to be a part of the union, but they don't have to have those dues, will not have those dues automatically deducted from the payroll. And so for those who choose not to, this gives them an offset to the premium change and the pension contribution change. Another important element that I think is critically important for our state employees who've been through furloughs in past budgets is the fact that this budget repair bill, as well as the budget I'll present on the 22nd of this month, will not include furloughs for any state employees, and essentially will not include layoffs. We're making fundamental reform changes in our wage and benefit structure, in our entitlement structure, and ultimately in our relationship with local governments. In addition, this bill, beyond the relationship it has with state employees, will essentially confer upon local governments, with the sole exception of fire and police at the local level and the state patrol at the state level, where they're exempted because we already have a tradition in the state treating fire and police service differently in a variety of areas. We want to maintain that because that's key to making sure that we can continue to have public safety as our core responsibility in the state, continue to maintain. But for all other local governments, and I briefed them on this last night, our School Boards Association, our League of Municipalities, the Wisconsin Counties Association, our school administrators, will be given the same flexibilities in terms of all those who are part of the Wisconsin retirement system, as well as Milwaukee County. Will be asked, as we're asking our state employees, to contribute half, which again is on average right now 5.8%, to their pension contribution. And then we'll be giving them the flexibility at the local level to make a health care contribution. We're not setting exactly what that is. Local governments will be given flexibility. That is incredibly important because, again, anyone who's been watching across the country knows not only here in Wisconsin, we face about a $3.6 billion deficit we inherit for this budget, but all but 4 states across the country, to my knowledge, are also facing similar deficits in state government. In New York and California, you have 2 Democrat governors in those 2 large states who are cutting billions of dollars of aid from the state to local governments, to schools, and to the university system without giving them the tools to make up for those reduced payments from the state. Here in Wisconsin, it is our goal in the biennial budget, and it begins with the process set out in this budget repair bill. We want to give our local governments the tools to be able to offset what may potentially be reductions in state aid in each of the various local government categories, so that in turn they can make up for that by giving flexibility, which, again, many of you know and lawmakers here know, local government officials have been asking for years, if not decades. This gives them the tools to do just that. The other change we make in terms of the collective bargaining process, we remove health care and pension contributions from collective bargaining. We maintain it for wages, but it's off the base wage, and it's capped at the CPI, again, for those covered in those categories. The context of that is if local governments or the state wants to go beyond that, they'll have to take that to the voters for a referendum. That gives them the backing to get local support for that. And again, it's one more tool to be able to balance not only the state budget, but to empower local government officials to balance their budget in the future. So this is a significant change. This is obviously a very bold and aggressive change. But I believe the people of the state elected me and members of the legislature to be bold and aggressive in the actions we take to help the private sector put people to work, and to be bold and aggressive in terms of how we balance the current fiscal year we're in, the next biennial budget, and the budgets that'll come into the future. And really, if you're going to do it, you got to tackle this issue. The couple other just things top of mind, again, to reiterate, this is not just a choice about this measure as to whether you do it or not. If we don't do it, the legislature does not do this either through the budget repair or through the budget bill. It needs to be very realistic about what the alternatives are. You're talking about massive layoffs at both the state and the local level. For those who might ask, why not bargain for this? Again, we're not negotiating over a budget. If you're going to negotiate and you're going to do it in good faith, you have to have something to offer. The state's broke. Local governments are broke. They don't have anything to offer. In addition to that, over the past decade, state employee contracts in terms of the negotiation process have on average taken 15 months. We don't have 15 months to negotiate at the state level. When it comes to local governments, we cannot, in my belief is, I don't want to have the uncertainty that some jurisdictions might have settlements that reach these numbers and others may not. We need to have the ability across the board for local governments to be able to control their own destiny. I think that's imperative as we look ahead to the budget challenges we face over the next 2 years of the biennial budget. So, critically important that we do this. There will be some who will try to blow this into something that it's not. For us, we continue to respect public sector employees at both the state and the local level. People who showed up yesterday and today for work, for professionals, I expect will continue to show up. We'll continue to do the great job that they do. We'll continue to care for the services they provide. I have every expectation that will continue. And again, other than the fact that they, as well as everybody else, union or not, will be expected to help make a modest contribution for the pension and health care benefits. For them, that's fundamentally the modest change that we're talking about here. There may be some leaders in some of the unions who will be upset with this, but that's because the workers and their collective bargaining units will not be forced to be a part of this process, particularly at the state level. But again, that's the trade-off, and I think for workers, they'll still have full rights when it comes to one of the most strongest collective bargaining, strongest civil service systems in the country. They'll still have the rights that we afford our non-represented employees in terms of other benefits that are afforded for state government employees. That will continue. So for that, again, stress good, decent people who work for state and local government. We continue to honor and respect the service that they provide. Once this is approved and a part of the state statutes, they will continue to be treated with that respect, just as we all treat, legislators treat, Republican or Democrat alike, treat the staff that works in their offices who are not represented by unions, and treat them